Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video in what is hopefully a very long series. I've recently set myself the goal of running a marathon in every country in the world, and we're kicking it off with the first one in Marrakech, the International Marathon of Marrakech in January 2024. Firstly, why am I going to be running a marathon in 190 something countries across the globe? I guess because why not? It's a simple answer. It'll be a great challenge. I'll build some great memories, and hopefully I can motivate some people to take on challenges for themselves. And hopefully in doing this project, this challenge, I'll be able to raise a lot of money for charity as well. I've never really been one for taking lots of pictures or recording myself, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to try and capture as much of each marathon as I can and upload every one of them here. Apologies in advance for what is probably some very sketchy quality, especially in the first few. As I said, I've never really done any of this stuff before, so it'll be a learning experience. Definitely some shaky camera work in these first few. I'm recording this having already done the marathon in Marrakech, and I know that what you're going to watch is probably not the best. Hopefully that watchability does improve as we get through each video. So with each of these videos, I'm going to try and say something about the race, the whole experience, the trip, the journey there, the hotel, the city, the country, and basically anything that I find relevant or want to talk about. There might be some structure to these videos, as it might be a little bit freewheeling, but I guess starting off at the beginning of the trip to Marrakech, we flew out on the Friday, despite the race being on Sunday, because we had to pick up the race number on Saturday by 5 p.m, and the only reasonably priced flights going into Marrakech from London landed after 5 p.m. So we had to fly out Friday, take the day off work Friday, and then pick up the race number on Saturday, race Sunday, and then a slightly difficult journey back on Sunday evening after the marathon. So we took the approach of just going us and our rucksacks for 2 days. We could fit enough stuff in there to get there and get back. It was a really relaxed travel day going over there. The airport wasn't busy, there was no traffic, it was pretty easy to get there. We had some lunch in the Plaza Premium Lounge, which was nice. It had a good view of some of the parked planes and planes taxiing onto the runway. On the way out there, we didn't reserve our seats, but luckily we got put in the same row, sadly on other sides of the aisle, so like seats C and F, one window seat, one aisle seat. The flight was okay, about 3 hours, just over. It was only a 15-minute drive from the airport to the hotel, and we were pleasantly surprised with the way in which the rules of the road were followed in Marrakech. So we'd been to Cairo in November 2023, and it's just a complete free-for-all on the streets of Cairo. And from simple ignorance, we were guessing that it might be fairly similar in Marrakech, both North African countries. But when we got there, roads were pretty good, really. They were much calmer. Everyone drove in a nice civilized manner, and we made it to the hotel without any scratches. We were staying in the hotel Lawrence Daribe. Excuse the pronunciation. My understanding is that it translates to Lawrence of Arabia. My French is not perfect at all, but it was a fine, quiet little hotel in the sort of the New City area. We were staying in the New City outside of the centre, because that was closer to the start and the finish of the race. So logistically, it made a lot of sense. We got there pretty late in the evening, so we just had some dinner in the News Cafe downstairs in the hotel. After that, we just head up to bed, got ready for what was going to be a very long and tiring 2 days. So when we got up on Saturday, we spent the day trying to cram in as much sightseeing as humanly possible into the one day that we had in Marrakech city to properly explore it. We ended up racking up 10 miles on foot, which wasn't necessarily the best idea the day before a marathon, but it was a good day, so yeah, all worth it. At first, our journey took us past the train station. We didn't really go in it, we just admired it from the outside. It's a pretty cool looking station. It was just down the road from our hotel and en route, so we thought it was a nice thing to see to start off the day. Then we went down to the Palace du 16th of November or something like that. Not really sure what was the palace. It was kind of a palace and a roundabout, both called the same thing. Anyway, that's where we had to pick up the race number. There are a few different races. There was some sort of fun run and a kids run as well. That meant it was a little bit crowded trying to get the number, but we succeeded. And then after that, we headed straight towards the Medina. That's kind of the old city, the souks, the narrow pathways, markets, all that that you think of when you hear Marrakech. So that was about a mile's walk from where we were. On the way there, we headed past some really nice gardens. That was just gates open, free to walk in. So we did. We had a little walk around, and it was very, very impressive. There were dozens of people working to maintain it, all really nicely kept paths, trees, bushes. There's some really cool orange trees that you don't really see much, so you don't see them very often living in London. It was all just very pretty and definitely worth exploring if you're there. An oasis is the word that comes to mind. So now a little while after that, back on the roads, we got to Gemma El Fnar Square, which is the centre of the city, the main market that all of the little markets branch off of. So we went there, had a walk around the souks, and they were brilliant. And although we only had space in our rucksack to buy the mandatory fridge magnet and shot glass, it was great to see a mix of the authentic goods and spices, as well as the fake football shirts and cheap made rubbish. After a little while of walking around, we grabbed a rooftop lunch with a slightly disappointing view. From the rooftop, we could only see one of 4 directions, and we're just staring at other rooftops. But it was nice to have a moment of relative silence after an hour or so of constant noise and the mental strain of trying to remember which route you'd taken and not getting lost. After that, we took a bit of an indirect route back to the hotel to go past the start line. We wanted to see where the start line was properly rather than just on Google Maps, to be able to understand the route back to the hotel and how busy it might be, just calm the nerves a little bit the day before. And anyone who's run a marathon knows that race day doesn't start on race day. It starts with the carb loading the day before, and this one was no different. So we managed to find a restaurant serving pasta for about £3.50 a bowl, which was pretty nice comparing that to London prices. And we had a quick bite to eat before a nice early night's sleep. So on race day, I woke up at 5:30, which was too early for the breakfast in the hotel. So knowing that the day before on the walk back to the hotel, we'd stopped in a little supermarket and bought some bananas and bread. Perfect breakfast. On Saturday, which I just ate in the room before leaving on Sunday, whilst doing some stretching and loosening up. The marathon started at 8:30 a.m. and the half marathon started at 9:45, and the majority of the 12,000 people who'd signed up in total for the marathon weekend were doing the half. So when I got there before the start of the marathon, it was pretty quiet and easy to get to the start. Because of the deserty climate of Marrakech, it was quite cold in the morning, and then temperatures rose quickly up towards midday. So it was a little bit chilly on the way to the start line. I'd looked up a little bit about the race beforehand and had heard that there was no bag drop anywhere on previous years, and it seemed the same on my year. So knowing this, I didn't bring a bag to the start line. I only brought what I could carry with me the whole way round or throw away before the race was meant to start. So that meant no extra layers to deal with the cold or anything. The hotel that we were staying in was only 1 mile away from the start line. So instead of getting there very early before the race to warm up and stretch out and everything, I decided to do all the stretching in the room and then left just after 8 a.m, which is about half an hour before the race, to get there pretty close to when the race was actually meant to start, and used the journey as a bit of a warm-up. The actual start wasn't staggered in any way by finishing time. You didn't have to put in your expected finish or go into pens or anything like that. So it's just kind of every man for himself at the start line. But luckily that didn't really matter too much. There weren't that many people there, and I wasn't trying to get anywhere near the start, so that one was fine, but just something to be aware of. The reason it didn't matter to me is because I was deliberately taking it slower than I normally would at the beginning. So I started quite far back, and it was a little bit crowded as you cross the start line. But after a few hundred yards, there was enough space to run at your own pace and not get stuck behind people. My aim for this run was literally just to get round without getting injured. I wasn't aiming for any specific time, because I knew I had a long journey because I knew I had a long journey home the same evening. I just wanted to be able to do it rather than do it quickly. So I started the race aiming for about 8-minute miles, and started just below that pace for the first few miles, taking in the scenery, enjoying the moment. The mountains that you can see, almost, it feels like every direction you look in, they're surrounding the city. They were a fantastic backdrop, and the energy that the city had was really good, a really great motivating factor. There are a few high points in ways of support, with music and people cheering you on, and of course a few kids who were competing to get the most high fives that they could. They always put a smile on your face when it means so much to them. I went through halfway in 1 hour 39, which was slightly quicker than I was aiming for. I guess just because I was enjoying it. My legs were moving a little bit quicker than planned. And at that point I fell into the same overconfident trap that I always do, and decided to pick up the pace a little bit. For mile 11 and 12, just before halfway, I ended up running next to another guy who was essentially running at the exact same pace, synchronized strides, and we both, you kind of naturally pick up the speed a little bit sometimes when that happens. So picked it up a little bit just into halfway, and I was feeling good. And then after halfway I decided to drop it from 8-minute miles to 6:30 to 7-minute miles. As you start overtaking one person, then you overtake the next, and the pace goes up and up before you realise that you're running a little bit too quickly. That happened around mile 18, when I just thought, no, I don't have another 8 miles of this in me. So I slowed it down back towards 8-minute miles, and cruised into the finish, basically trying to avoid cramp. So with about a mile or two left to go, the marathon route joined up with the half marathon route, and I went from running on my own, or one or two other people, the occasional overtake or being overtaken, to being completely surrounded by loads of people. As I said, most of the people who were there were running the half marathon, not the marathon. And when you're in a race like this, when you join up with a different distance, it can have its positives and its negatives. So the half runners were going at a slightly slower pace than what I was going at, which meant that I could overtake quite a lot of people, and it was a nice kind of confidence boost when I wasn't feeling fantastic to, just, even though it means nothing, just the relative speed that you're going at compared to the people that are around you, that does just give you that extra weird boost. It doesn't make any sense, but it just happens. So that was nice. But also there are loads of people around you. It's slightly congested. People can get in your way a little bit, but that wasn't too much of a problem. It was definitely a positive impact in this one. So after a little bit of running in a big crowd, the routes then split again for the last half a mile, and I cruised into the finish solo pretty much. I think I crossed the line 3 hours 17, and grabbed my medal and tried to get out of the crowds that were surrounding the finish line as quickly as I can, and then stumbled back to the hotel, a very, very slow walk. It was so fantastic just to come and collapse on the bed at that point. And after an hour or two of washing, letting my legs recover and just resting for a bit, Kira was awake at this point. She'd stayed in the hotel just chilling out by the pool and having breakfast. After this we went out to grab some lunch. Our flight wasn't till a little bit later in the evening, so we looked up a few restaurants nearby and decided to go to the Amani Hotel, which was literally a stone's throw from our hotel. They had a rooftop restaurant, and the panoramic views from that rooftop were much, much better than the rooftop lunch the day before. We sat and enjoyed it for a while, and the waiter was a really nice guy. He was talking about how much he loves Morocco, loves Marrakech, and how much there is to do outside of the city. He almost convinced me to stay a little bit longer, try and see more of it. But we had to head back to our hotel after that, got our stuff ready. And one of the key benefits of traveling with only a rucksack is that it's not a very strenuous packing task when you're coming home. So yeah, just got our stuff into our bags and got ready to go. So the journey home, we got picked up from the hotel at about 6 p.m. and got to the airport with plenty of time before our flight. And then we stopped in the Pearl Lounge. The lounge was nice, but it was definitely serving an end of day menu. We sat in this nice little cubicle seat, which had a good view of a few parked planes. It was a bit dark, so we couldn't really see much, but I'm sure earlier in the day, with a better view, with better food and full fridges, it's a nice lounge. Once the plane was boarding, we headed over to the gate, and there weren't really any issues at all with the flight back. We landed just after 11 p.m. back at Gatwick, which was, again, I think slightly early. I think we were expecting to come in a little bit later than that. And being such a late landing, any 20-30 minutes that you can gain, it really is quite nice. As expected, the journey back from Gatwick was traffic free at midnight, and the Lucozade Energy that I'd left in the car before the start of the trip managed to keep me awake long enough to make it home. The journey was luckily cramp free. I was slightly terrified of cramping up on the M25 and causing a pile up, but managed to avoid that. And yeah, we managed to get home in one piece. So, a few concluding remarks. I guess all in all, it was just a great weekend. Really great city, really nice place to run, great people. It was a great way to start off a massive adventure. If anyone's counting, which I am, that's one down and 190 something to go. So this is actually my 5th marathon, but my first international one. So I've done 4 in the UK, So 1 down or 2 down, depending on when you want to start. I think I'm going to start as of 1st of January 2024. So my goal for 2024, as the sort of mini goal within the major goal for this year, is to do roughly a marathon a month, aiming for about 12 marathons in the year. So some of them, like this Marrakech one, will be official marathon races, and some will just be me running around for a few hours to hit 26.2 miles. Some of them will be near, some of them will be far, some of them will be hot, some of them will be cold, but each one will hopefully be a really good adventure. So the next marathon on the list is Malta in February. Keep an eye out for the next video. Funnily enough, I'm actually recording this voiceover right now, only a few days before the Malta marathon. It took me a while to get around to actually making this video, but that one will hopefully come around a little bit sooner. Expect it, I guess, start of March. I don't know if anyone will actually be watching this video early enough to to be looking out for the next one. But hey, if you are, then keep your eyes peeled. The aim of making these videos is mainly to keep a record of the memories myself, so that, I can one day look back at everything and enjoy the memories. From my perspective, that's the main aim. And then, from the perspective of how it might impact other people, hopefully these videos can inspire some people. Me running a mediocre marathon, depending on who you ask, for the sake of having a weekend away, not necessarily the most inspirational thing, but hopefully the goal in total can be something that inspires people, whether it's inspiring people to run or do any other type of exercise, look after themselves a bit better, improve their overall health, or if it inspires people to travel more, see the world, enjoy life, or if it inspires you to do anything that makes you happy and healthy, even if it's just one person that watches and makes a positive change, then that's a win for me. If you are watching, hopefully you will be that person or one of those people that is inspired. Don't be afraid to make a positive change in your own life. Don't be afraid to take a risk, do something that's scary or sounds ridiculous at first. Hopefully I can achieve my goal, and hopefully you can achieve yours too. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.